1/3 of Ukrainian territory is uninhabitable, as Ukraine joins the club of heavily mined countries. At least 170,000 square kilometers of land hide potential dangers in the form of mines and unexploded ordnance, which will take many years to clear. Prior to the outbreak of full-scale war, Ukrainian farmers were setting records. In 2021, the country harvested 106 million tons of grains, pulses, and oilseeds. Today, many farmers have been left with nothing, because after the liberation of the occupied territories, they discovered that their farmland, millions of hectares, had been mined. As of today, the mined territory is more than 2 million hectares of land. Accordingly, in the context of oblasts, these are the Kherson, Mykolaiv, and Kharkiv oblasts that have been mined. And these are not the only mined areas. They need to be surveyed and investigated. And these are not only mined areas, they also need to be surveyed and investigated. Also, humanitarian demining operations need to be done, and it must be known to what extent these areas are contaminated. Desperation and hopelessness are pushing some farmers into taking incredible risks. To feed their families, they're forced to plow unexpected fields that are full of mines. I personally had a case in Mykolaiv Oblast. We were approaching a field that had been mined. The diagonal is about 3 kilometers, fully mined. And then we saw that a tractor right in front of us drove onto this field. Confused, we asked the farmer, "What are you doing? There are mines here." He simply replied, "What else am I supposed to do? I have bills to pay, family to feed. I have workers, they expect me to pay them a salary." To that, I tried to tell him that if you continue, there will be no workers left to pay. Sadly, there have been a lot of situations like this since the war started. In Sumy Oblast, Kharkiv Oblast, Kherson Oblast, Zaporizhia Oblast, and Kyiv Oblast. Human lives aren't the only thing at risk from this widespread mining. The Ukrainian economy is also suffering, says Denis Marchuk, deputy chairman of the All-Ukrainian Agrarian Council. The direct and indirect losses amount to more than 80 billion, with direct losses of about 10 billion. Indirect losses are about 70 billion. This includes issues related to demining and mining. Destroyed equipment, destroyed warehouses, destroyed grain elevators and dairy farms amount to about 10 billion euros. All other losses are also related to the war: the non-use of fields due to mining, the reduction in the number of fields used due to the temporary occupation, the delayed delivery of products and markets. Insurance and logistics are more expensive, so they don't even receive a market price. The question stands: is it possible to demine Ukrainian territory in the near future? Oleg Kudryk, the deputy head of a unit in charge of organizing humanitarian demining, has been clearing Ukrainian fields since the beginning of the war. He admits that every demining operation is different. Russian forces go out of their way to innovate new and insidious traps to frustrate Ukrainian demining attempts. The mine is placed 50 centimeters deep into the ground instead of 5 centimeters. After that, the mine's location is marked with a wooden stake. But the complicated part is that even the most professional deminer will not be able to tell exactly where the mine is because it's dug in too deeply into the ground. He won't hear it at 50 centimeters. A tractor will not be able to tell for a week, too, that there's a mine there. And then one day, it blows up immediately. That's why it can take several days to clear even just a few square meters. In this case, speed is the main enemy for a deminer. I'll tell you from my experience, you come in, you see one mine, then another one near it, and not far from that, yet another. You don't rush at them. You are not allowed to do that. It may even be that today you've looked, walked, gone around in safe directions, but on the next day, the mines will be someplace completely different. Even on the weekends, deminers think to themselves, what if that mine was in a different spot? Through that brainstorming, you can figure out what you'll do on the next day in that mined area. Mine clearance operations in the liberated territories are conducted in 2 stages. The first is operational demining. The main goal of the deminers is to ensure safety for settlements. Therefore, the first step is to check the power lines, the heating stations, the pumping substations, the water pipes, and the supply routes for explosives. The next step is the humanitarian demining of the area. This is a more long-term process. It's designed to clear large areas of land which are confirmed to be, or are most likely, contaminated by explosive ordnance. During this process, a thorough examination of the topsoil is carried out, and all ferromagnetic bodies are removed from the topsoil, not just explosive ones, but all of them. That means that there's clean soil in that particular place. But the question still remains: how long will it take to completely clear Ukraine's territory, including its agricultural land? On average, one deminer can manually clear up to 10 square meters of land per day. Under these conditions, it will take at least 700 years to clear Ukraine of mines. But the government says that they have an ambitious goal regarding this daunting task. We have an ambition to complete the demining of all large-scale agricultural land within 3 years after the liberation of the occupied territories, and in general, to complete the entire demining of the country in about 5 to 7 years. How can this be achieved? Well, unfortunately, Ukraine will not be able to rely on its previous experience in clearing large swaths of land from mines. This is due not only to the widespread distribution of these mines, but their differing types and varieties. In order to properly cleanse Ukraine from these weapons, the country will need to incorporate international expertise as well as urge innovations in mine clearance technologies. Ukrainian farmlands are poised to serve as an ideal testing ground for these new inventions. After all, Ukraine's case is unique in the scale and variety of mines. We are one of the most mined countries in the world, and I think we can partially experiment with mine clearance by introducing new developments that exist in the world to these fields in order to improve them, and then, after improving, to do better work on demining the territories of Ukraine. Some steps in this direction have already been taken. Some of Ukraine's international partners have provided the country with specialized vehicles that can clear 2,000 square meters of land in a single shift. Drones are also actively working in the fields, or rather, over them. This demining drone is a joint development between Ukrainian engineers and NATO. Once launched, it flies over mine territories and scans them, creating a topological map with the exact locations of the mines and other unexploded ordnance marked. Ukraine's cabinet of ministers are also attempting to salvage the livelihoods of farmers affected by the mining by launching a humanitarian demining market. Ukrainian banks have already started lending to farmers under this program, which they can use to purchase demining equipment and services. The state promises to compensate 80% of the funds spent on demining as long as the equipment or service was purchased at an open auction.